this discussion is about what living and non-living things are made of. Living and non-living things are made of something called matter. And one of the common misconceptions in biology and in all science, especially in high school, or not maybe common misconceptions or something that's really confused, is the link between matter and energy. And so in the beginning of this year, we need to make sure we get that straight. So let's talk about matter specifically. And some of this is review for many of you, so I'm going to go pretty fast in this part of the lecture, and then we'll slow down a little bit as we get a little bit farther. Matter is something that takes up space and has mass. And we do demos in biology. You've probably seen demonstrations of matter in other classes. These are some of the things that you're already pretty much expected to know in this class. The fact that matter is made up of atoms. Atoms make up elements, so elements are all the same kind of atom. Molecules are combinations of atoms, and then compounds are combinations of atoms / molecules. And we've been water, for example, and its properties that we've spent a little bit of time with already, is a compound. And it's made up of the atoms, 2 atoms, a compound of a molecule of water. A molecule of water, 1 molecule of water is H2O, 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. Okay? And then all of those together, a whole bunch of those water molecules together, is the compound water. Combinations of elements make up different kinds of matter. Matter is not created nor destroyed in a chemical reaction. And this is a really important idea. We get compounds, we get new materials by chemical reactions. That's how we obtain them. Okay? And so the big idea here, I can't use the term big idea anymore because we have 4 big ideas in AP biology, but the concept here is that matter isn't created nor destroyed in a chemical reaction. So for example, here I have written a very common biological chemical reaction. Okay, and some of you should recognize this a little bit from freshman year biology. This is the compound glucose. Okay, if you take glucose and mix it with oxygen, you will get as the products of that reaction, water and carbon dioxide. Water and carbon dioxide. And you'll notice if you count up, and you had to do this in chemistry, so I'm not going to spend very much time on this. If you count the atoms, for example, of oxygen, there are 6 atoms of oxygen here, 12 atoms of oxygen here for 18. And over here there are 6 atoms of oxygen, 12 atoms of oxygen there for a total of 18. So all of the matter is conserved. Now what does this mean? Well, this means that all the matter that's on the earth has always been on the earth. Whoa. If you think about that for a minute, all the matter that's on the earth has always been on the earth. So, well, you're like, well, some of it could float off into outer space. Not really. It's trapped by the atmosphere. I'm sure there are some, I don't know, escapees maybe, but not very many. Gravity's holding those atoms close to the earth. Now, some people extend that and say, okay, well, then all the matter that's in the universe has always been in the universe, and that would be true too. We can't comprehend the universe; it's too big. And so, but if whatever you think about the universe, all the matter that's in the universe has always been in the universe, and it's not going anywhere. It's just changing forms. We're mixing and matching carbons and hydrogens and oxygens and stuff to make different kinds of compounds. Excuse me a minute. I lost my recorder. So in organisms, we have something called metabolism, and you've probably heard of metabolism. You might say, I have a high metabolism, or somebody has a low metabolism. Well, what metabolism actually is the sum of all the chemical reactions that happen, and I put in the human body, and I really should say that for any organism, the sum of all the chemical reactions that happen in a rat, the sum of all the chemical reactions that happen in a tree is its metabolism. Okay, that's its metabolism. And there are two kinds of metabolism. There is something called catabolism and something called anabolism. And the sum of those two, there's two basic kinds of reactions, is called metabolism. And we're going to kind of jump, we're going to come back to this in second semester of this class. But right now, we need to get the idea of catabolism and anabolism down. And here's the idea. Catabolism is when you have larger molecules, organic molecules of life, are broken down to smaller ones. And you can ignore this term for right now. We'll actually use it more later. Okay, when larger organic molecules are broken down to smaller, and I always remember this as catabolism, even though it's catabolism, they're cut. It requires enzymes. And you will also see the term hydrolysis because water is added to make this happen. Okay, and one of the major reasons for water in an organism is for metabolism, for the ability of the organism to break down or build molecules. So an example of catabolism is given with this chemical reaction here. Table sugar, C12H22O11, add water, and it can be broken in half, essentially, into two glucose molecules. There's an illustration of the idea here. Here we have our individual parts of the molecule. The molecule can be broken apart into smaller pieces. And the important idea there in catabolism is that when that happens, you get a release of energy. And the reason we're mentioning that right now is our next lecture, or our next set of lectures is on energy. And so that can be broken apart when the organism, when the molecule's broken apart, you get energy, and that's called catabolism. Well, then anabolism, if you think about this, anabolism is when smaller molecules are built into large molecules. Okay, and we use the term polymer for that. And we're talking again about organic compounds of life. Again, this requires enzymes, which we'll refer back to in a while. Also known as dehydration, synthesis, or sometimes just dehydration, because water is removed and water becomes a product of the reaction. Then water is taken out of the molecules. And again, here I have an example. It's the actual reverse reaction of the one we just showed you. If you took two glucose molecules with some enzymes to build sucrose, water is also a product of that reaction. A picture of that here would be, here's a compound of life, glucose. Here's a second compound of life, glucose, with the appropriate enzyme. Water is removed right here. I kind of covered it up. Right here, we remove the hydrogen from this side and a hydrogen and oxygen from that side. They form what's called a link. Again, we'll come back to this in the second semester. And we get a compound called maltose, C12H22O11. Okay, sucrose is actually a different linkage. And again, we'll come back to that later. So now, if you conceive of this a minute, if you picture this a minute, in order for these to be held together, there has to be energy. The cell has to put energy in to hold that bond together, and that's an important idea. So anabolism, you've seen that word maybe with something called anabolic steroids, building reactions. So in our discussion of matter, Okay, we have matter and then metabolism in living things.